Hello, hello. Hello there. Hello. Welcome to Big Brother's Big Brand. Hope very well. The shows that prove that Edith's Complex isn't a Newtown shopping centre. Tonight we are talking girls and prisons. Sounds kinky, right, my friend? It isn't. We're merely talking about the comparison between the Big Brother house and serving time. Also going to be looking at that golden ticket winner, Susie. I'm getting a shake of that. You either hate me or you hate her, one of the two. And the very, very popular Grace. Great. But first, let's have a look at what Susie's been up to since Friday night.
14!
14.
Only the golden housemaid will be permitted.
Oh, give me some brown nosing then, isn't there?
This is a secret.
Oh, how absolutely fantastic.
That's weird, isn't it? It seems weird, doesn't it? Because there's her, and obviously you know what's going on. And there's like a circle around her.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
She's already made her mind up who she's putting off nomination. How do you know? Because of course she has. She's been watching us.
I'd like to invite you to
Really?
my dinner party.
Oh, my God! Oh, my God!
Fucker. Really fucked off.
Welcome to the Big Brother house.
Yes,
Thank you, guys. You really have. You've been really lovely to me. So
I've tried to sit down and talk to her, but I just kind of get this feeling of she sort of puts up a wall.
I don't know why a 43-year-old woman would want to come on fucking Big Brother. At the moment, everything's tickety-boo.
Tickety-boo! Tickety-boo! Is he insane? Earlier today, she nominated, and here is how the house took the news.
It's really
This
nice.
is Big Brother. The housemates nominated for eviction this week are...
oh, come on, get it over with.
Grace and Nikki.
I am so sorry, folks. They have made me into such a bitch. Such a bitch.
Babe, it's not that you had to do it.
Honestly, it was the hardest thing. I will tell you now, it was the hardest thing
You were stiff.
I had to do. I do feel really dreadful.
So, here we go. Nikki and Grace face eviction this week. Voting numbers coming up on the end of the show. But first, to talk about femme fatale Susie, I'm joined by the psychotherapist with the Midas touch. It's Rachel Morris, everyone! OK, first, Rachel, I'll tell you what we know about Susie. We know that she's a 43-year-old married mum of one. She's a model. She's applied to be on Big Brother 3 times. She was a stand-in for Big Brother 5. I'm not entirely sure I'm keen on all of this sort of shenanigans. Her husband bought her a golden ticket for £4,000. Good deal. And she's... the husband, that is. And she's nominated Nikki and Grace. Tell me stuff I don't know about her.
OK, well, the thing about Susie is that she's playing that Madonna whore role, as indeed a couple of other people in the house. This is a role that traditionally men approve of, so she's a male attention seeker. That won't come as a surprise to many people.
OK.
But she actually scored quite low on an intelligence test. She's actually nearer to the bottom of that group of housemates.
Right.
But the Machiavellian test, which you remember is the test that we do to test just how manipulative a housemate will be, she measured 3rd from the top, behind Aisling and
broke
Mikey.
the Guinness World Book of Records on that one,
Yes,
right?
she did. She's way out. She's way out on a limb all by herself. And then comes Mikey, which is very surprising.
Mikey manipulative.
And then we've got Susie.
OK, let's take a look at how the house reacted when Susie arrived. I want your take on all of this.
I'm fine.
Jane Seymour.
Hello.
How are you?
Did you hear me shouting number 14?
You don't believe what I said before you got picked.
Oh, really?
I said it's 14.
Hello.
We're so happy to have you.
What a way to bring you in as well.
And I have just been thirsty.
OK, you've got your take on some quite brilliant reactions now.
Absolutely,
You're going to
they
single
were
out a few
amazing.
for us. The first one you want to talk about, I believe, is Richard. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Remember that Richard is a guy who doesn't live in his own country. He has a job where he doesn't have any commitment or responsibility. He's a waiter. He's a transient. This is somebody who likes to form superficial relationships with new people.
He sounds like he's a dangerous man, the way you're describing
Not
it.
necessarily. He just likes his superficial relationships. He saw her come in. Just take a look. He's like a diva.
Okay.
You know, he spots a diva, and he is a diva.
Slow-mo it. Wonderful. Now, look, he pushes Grace out of the way.
With his... Look, he's leading with his penis. Can you see
His
this?
penis pushes Grace out of the way.
He's actually... He's playing his sexual role with this diva. And he's really proclaiming his space with it. He's playing Ring a Roses. It's you and me, babe. Forget all these others.
Everyone's
It's
right
you and
there.
me.
It's a very rude way to greet someone.
Could you see how he really used his physical presence to move them all away?
He was like Moses, the way he did
She's
that.
mine.
It was extraordinary. Can we just see... my favourite reaction here is Lisa's reaction, which actually looks like they have radiation poisoning. Watch this. Watch Lisa's face. Right, OK, this is all... Suddenly, look at Lisa! Oh,
He's
my...
absolutely disgusted.
What is he up
She
to
has
there?
no idea what she's looking at. That is a really confusing mass of contradictions, which Susie is.
Yeah.
You know, she's posh, and yet she's not that bright. She's got big boobs, and yet she's also quite a lady. She's really confusing, and somebody like Lisa has no idea where she is with someone like Susie.
OK, we're going to look at Aisling. Now, I find Aisling can look really attractive in certain shots. But look at this. Suddenly, Pat St Clements from EastEnders has turned up. Watch this. That's just not Aisling. I don't understand. But what reaction is that? Because it's kind of almost spaced, isn't it?
Yeah, I think she's exactly what she's done. She's completely phased out, and she's actually asking herself now. Remember, Aisling is at the top of the manipulative scores.
Yeah.
She's Machiavellian, and she's sitting there going, right, what is Big Brother doing to us? Why is she in here? How am I going to play this? She's right on it.
OK, Imogen's the next one you wanted to point out. Let's take a look at Imogen's reaction there. Now, see, I can't read anything here. Tell me what
Well,
this
look at it. It's a completely plastic smile. Her face is moved into a smile, but there's absolutely nothing behind that. It's a grimace. She really doesn't want any more housemates in the house, never mind one with another great big personality. Since Caesar left, she is just being diluted with every new housemate, and
So-
she's becoming invisible.
OK. And lastly, this is my favourite one. Leah's reaction to when a new lady entered the house. Let's have a look at it.
So here, this is great now. Watch her eyes. She flicks down. Yeah. Oop, yep, there her bosoms. Are they as big as mine? Yeah, no.
Is that really the only
and
question she's asking herself?
She's going back again. She's going back in for a second look just to make sure. Yeah.
Wonderful. Can
And
we just
oh,
replay
just
that?
missed
Because
that. Oh,
it's
there's
just
two glances.
There we go. Look at that. Straight down there.
And the smile is letting us know that actually she still choose hers over Susie's.
Leah, she knows she has the biggest boobs in England, so she just looked at. No,
Yeah.
I thought so. You're all right now.
Yeah, we're good to go.
We move on to Grace now. You want to talk about Grace?
I do want to talk about Grace. I'm very worried about her.
OK, it wasn't just Susie that entered the house on Friday. It was a heck of a lot of jeering from the crowd as well. Let's take a look.
Eyes down.
Everyone shut up.
Full house.
No, they were just going.
me. They're boom.
Get Grace out.
And it's because the fucking girls, because every single night, obviously you come into, and then the girls are thinking, I'm doing fucking something with you. Yes, they do, babe. I can just imagine it. You're a fucking slut. Do you think people don't like me because of Pete? Because Pete, everyone loves Pete, and Pete thought I was shallow. They must have portrayed me as a right fucking Chelsea bird, but I'm not.
What's a Chelsea bird?
Like a slow ranger.
What's that mean?
Like,
Push rich girl.
yeah. But I don't. But I don't live. I don't live in Chelsea. I live in Notting Hill. I just can't believe so many people are fucking hating me. It's unreal. I've never had that before in my life.
Hey, it's a fucking pantomime, mate.
This is obviously at the moment I'm public enemy number one.
OK, this is interesting. We know that Grace has been bitching. We know she's been backstabbing a little bit, but it's hardly the crime of the century. It's very natural, especially in her environment. So why is she so unpopular outside the house. I mentioned the name earlier on. Unprompted, these guys booed.
I know, and I understand where you're coming from, I really do. But just let me appeal to you just for a second. This is a girl who's only 20 and she's probably lived in a very small bubble of an environment where everybody all her life has told her that she's lovely. Lovely Grace, what everybody likes. This is the first time she's actually encountered other social groups, other classes, other environments. When she heard that chant, that you might as well have just told her that the world was flat after all.
Well, it's weird because that was unparalleled in Big Brother history, I think, because normally people hear the reactions and the boos and so forth, but it's extraordinary that, you know, it was something that almost that detailed.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
What it is we as a nation in Britain, we love the underdog and we hate the top dog, and she proclaimed herself emperor the minute she walked in the house. Everyone went, well, hang on a second, we haven't said whether or not you can be emperor. So what we do is we conspire to tear down the top dog, and unfortunately she put herself there. Probably her mum put her there, her aunties put her there. She didn't know that she didn't have a right to take that role. She has not been purposefully vile.
Has Rachel changed your mind?
I did my best.
Yeah, bunch of rotters.
She's only 20.
If Grace does go on Friday, what will happen in the house? Will the bitching dissipate and so forth?
Well, bitching will have to happen. I mean, we you know, bitching is all a part of the group dynamic, and a group would die without it.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can rest assured it's going to be there for the rest of Big Brother's days.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot. Rachel, everyone. Great. Thanks, Rachel. Now, as you know, we did loads of tests on the housemates before they went into the house. One of the tests was to find out how perceptive the housemates are. We showed each of them 24 photos of people's faces. For each photo, the housemates had to say what emotion they believed the people in the photo were feeling. Now, we can't show you the actual photographs we used because it would make the test invalid for future use. But here's an example of something similar that we picked up from a rather dashing young man earlier on today. Now then, what emotion do we think I'm feeling there? Other than constipation, is what one of my team said earlier on. Happy? The answer is... Oh, I'm angry. Look at that. It's my Mike Skinner angry look. Do you like it? Now, as I said, we did a perception test on all of our housemates, but who do you think is the more perceptive, Richard or Glyn? Let's see how perceptive you are. We'll see you in 4. Welcome back. Thank you very well. Welcome back to Big Brother's Big Brain, the show that Freud can only dream. Now, just before the break, I asked you who is the most perceptive housemate out of Richard and Glyn?
Richard.
Why Richard?
I don't know. I think he has a lot to say.
Are you Canadian?
No.
Are you
American?
Are you related to Richard?
American.
What about you?
Definitely Richard.
You think definitely Richard, sir?
Definitely Richard.
Definitely Richard. The answer is... Make him shine. It's Glyn. He wins everything! You may be interested to know that he is, in fact, a joint top of the Perception League with Nikki. How about that? Richard is actually, young lady down here, joint bottom of the Perception League with Pete, which is extraordinary. There we go. But Glyn is fast turning into super housemate, I trust you'll agree. Not only is he the happiest, the most intelligent, and the most perceptive housemate, according to our tests, is also the only housemate to survive a lap dance from Leah. Sorry, son. Right, now what's the difference between prison and the Big Brother house? Well, one's full of people whose life is passing by and incarcerated for the public good. And the other holds dangerous felons. Roll the VT.
Housemate, you have pleaded guilty to the charges brought by this court, and it is now my duty to pass sentence. You are an habitual rule breaker and fame seeker who accepts arrest as an occupational hazard and presumably accepts imprisonment with the same casual manner. We therefore feel constrained to commit you to the maximum term allowed for these offences. You will go to prison, or the Big Brother house in this instance, for a maximum of 13 weeks.
OK, here to draw some comparisons between prison life and the Big Brother house is psychologist Pamela Steele, an ex-offender and now founder of The Big Issue, John Bird. Thanks for joining us, John. Pamela, start with you. You spend 2 days a week with inmates in prison. How is the Big Brother house, or the experience, similar to the prison regime?
God, it's so similar. It really is very similar. I have to point out, first of all, in fact, that that it's not a luxurious lifestyle in prison. It really is quite tough on them, but there are definite similarities. For instance, the situation with the voice in the Big Brother house, that's very similar to prison officers. So they have this sort of custodial role, they're authoritarian, they make sure the rules are kept by, and if they're not, then they serve out the sentences and the punishment.
Like
that's right, yeah.
Okay, cool. How are people's lives affected by these institutions? I mean, there's three main areas we're going to talk about. Loss of identity is the first one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Loss of identity is such a big one. When you're in a group or an institution, whether it be in a prison, whether it be a Big Brother house, or whether it be maybe in a job or a relationship, then you tend to get a loss of identity over into the group. And in doing so, unless you've got a really strong identity, you can actually start failing. So the sort of people we look in Big Brother is to say that, okay, Pete has got quite a strong identity, and Nikki actually has got quite a strong identity, Mikey's got a strong identity. So all of those are going to be fairly safe.
Sure.
And some of the others not quite so.
Sure. John, did you experience that when you were in prison? That whole loss, the notion of loss of identity, is it quite hard to keep who you are in your own mind?
In a way, yeah. I think the big problem is that people often behave totally differently in an institution and probably in the Big Brother household. And they probably leave and say, God, why did I behave that way? I mean, like that girl who was always, sticking the knife in people. I'm sure she'd go away and say, Jesus Christ, I didn't know I was going to do that.
Yeah.
And people do change their identity. I remember on institutions I've been in, and you'd see, you'd have to fight for your identity. You'd have to say, look, I'm not going to be trodden on and I'm not going to be used and abused.
Okay, the next one we're going to talk about is the loss of freedom, which obviously is far different from a prison to the Big Brother house, but at the same time, I guess it's a microcosm of it.
Yeah, there is a huge loss of freedom, really both with Big Brother and the prisons. Obviously, prisoners haven't got any choice in the matter, and the Big Brother housemates do. But very much the loss of freedom in terms of personal space, in terms of the confinement of the whole area of Big Brother as well. But most importantly, I would say it's personal space. And we can look at people like Shabazz and people like Leah and people like, who was the other one? Nikki, who get into other people's personal space. Sam was the one.
Well, Shabazz was in particular for I mean, what would you consider personal space to be? I mean, how big is it?
We're talking around about a sort of a 2-foot radius around us. So if anyone gets into that 2-foot radius, we can feel incredibly comfortable. And a good example of that is if you're going out to get cash, and there's a cash square now, which is what they call a privacy radius, and that's very much about our personal space. Anyone stepped into that, and we do feel extremely uncomfortable.
Okay, let's just very briefly talk about the whole notion of isolation as well. The one thing I've always thought about Big Brother is that it's impossible to turn a corner without seeing someone. And it's almost like, sure, it does rob you of your isolation, doesn't it? I mean, but you're just in there with people that you maybe don't have any experience with. You know
you're mixing with all sorts of different people. You haven't got any choice in the matter. And the worst thing about it also is that you actually haven't got the people that you love most, those who would support you most. So you really are losing out on that. And on that real support, what happens instead is that people develop relationships. So you've got the relationship that's going on between Leah and Pete, and you've got the relationship, obviously, with Mikey and Grace, and the relationship we did have with Caesar and Imogen. Sure. And people form that in order to get stronger support from each other.
Okay. We talk about the notion about being institutionalised. John, are there any positives about being institutionalised?
Well, every time I got nicked, I always learnt something new. You know, I learnt to read and write when I was in Ashford boys' prison, and other places I learnt to be a gardener, not that I ever became a gardener. And I also learnt to tell stories and to write those stories down. So, you know, you could say that my work in The Big Issue, not only just working with people who've been in the prison system, but some of the things I learned actually meant that I had this time by myself.
Sure.
And I could build up, you know, some knowledge.
Now, I know it's a slight leap of faith, obviously, from your own position, but Glenn's certainly the person in the house that's kind of...
learned so much.
Exactly. Let's take a look at him.
Definitely.
Oh, this is a full transaction.
Yeah,
Well, I can tick that box now. Kiss a blonde girl with massive, with big ones. And it's like, oh, flipping it, come on. I haven't done this.
Look behind you, Glenn.
Is it supposed to be like that? I know how to make beans on toast, I know how to make sandwiches, I know how to make a pasta, I know how to boil an egg. So I'll be fine, won't I? I'm learning life skills in here.
Isn't that great?
You must see that and
I
just
know.
think, well, that's just the positive aspect of being almost like trading your identity and finding yourself a little bit more in the process.
It is, and isn't that wonderful to see what he's done? He embraces change, he embraces all the challenges, and he's loving it. He's absolutely loving it. And in fact, that's what happens in prisons as well. You know, if we set challenges, if they come to education, then some of them really embrace it and absolutely love it, and go on to use those qualifications.
Sure. John, what's the toughest thing about being in prison?
The most difficult thing I found was actually not the regime, but some of the people you met, some of them who were, you know, out to control you and all that sort of stuff. And I found that prisons are often run by the inmates, and I think that's really bad news. And I'm sure it's the same with Big Brother, you know, it's run by the inmates, and some people will win out and some people will lose out. I was the only person I ever met in the prison system who stood up against bullies. It was so much a part of the institution. And I got my head kicked in. Sometimes I won, sometimes I lost. And I was astonished at the cowardliness of the bullies, the bullying system. And if you took that out of the prison system, I don't think prisons would run very well.
Sure. That's pretty much all we've got time for. Thanks. It was a really interesting chat. Thank you very much. Guys, all right? Thanks a lot, John and Pam. Appreciate you coming. That is all for this week's Big Brain. We are back same time next week. You can join me for BBUK Tuesday to Friday, 7:30 on E4. Remember, free your mind and your ass will certainly follow. We'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Grace and Nikki face eviction from the Big Brother house. Who goes? You decide. To evict Grace, call 09911 32 33 05. To evict Nikki, call 09911 32 33 10. Or text the name of the housemate you want to evict to 84444.